In this video, we will start our analysis about oligopoly. By the end of this video, you should be able to explain the unique characteristics of oligopoly market structure.
What is oligopoly? To simply define oligopoly, it is a market structure with a small number of firms, and with or without differentiated products dominates the market. In short, none of which can keep the other firm from having significant influence. The number of companies tend to be at low for the reason of the extremely high cost to enter the business industry. With the low number of companies, it affects the little incentives to barely compete with the price.
Let us give you a short meaning of Kent demand curve model in oligopoly, wherein the reaction of rivals to a price change depends on whether price is raised or lowered. Rivals are assumed not to follow a price increase by one firm, so the acting firm will lose market share, therefore demand will relatively elastic and the rise in price will lead to less revenue. Rivals are assumed to be likely to match a price fall by one firm in order to avoid a loss of market share. If this happens, demand will be more inelastic and a fall in price will also lead to a fall in total revenues. The elasticity of demand and hence the gradients of the demand curve will be also different. The demand curve will begin at the current price. Even when there is a large rise in marginal cost, price tends to stick close to its original, given the high price elasticity of demand for any price rise. Next is the features of oligopoly.
So let us now move on to the features of oligopoly. The first feature of oligopoly and the most important is in industry. It is dominated by a small number of large firms, which is relatively large compared to the overall size of the market. An oligopoly firm actually can have a large number of firms approaching that of any monopolistically competitive industry. However, the distinguishing feature is that a few of the firms are relatively compared to the overall market. So it is given in an industry with 1,000 firms. For example, if the top 5 firms produce half of the industry's total output, that is considered as an oligopolistic economy.
One of characteristic of oligopoly is identical and differentiate product. This is what makes your product different and more appealing to your target customer. Now, we have two variety of oligopolistic industry. We have identical product oligopoly and differentiate product oligopoly. Identical product oligopoly tends to process raw materials or produce intermediate good. Intermediate good are products that are made during manufacture but also used to create another product. One of example of this is wood, steel, aluminum, and sugar. Now, the other one is differentiate product oligopoly. This tends to focus on goods sold for personal consumption like automobile, cell phone, and computer.
So the third feature of oligopoly is the barriers to entry. It is the key characteristics that separate oligopoly from monopolistic competition on the continuum of market structures. Firm can enter a monopolistical competitive industry when existing firm receive economic profit. However, with substantial entry barriers found in oligopoly, firms cannot enter the industry as easily and thus existing firms maintain greater market control.
Any firm seeking to enter in the market will face with significant barriers. First, a new firm must compete with other firms and how they advertise and promote their product well. Second, a new entry has to construct a new factory, limited initial sales, and this new firm in the market will be unable to full advantage of decreasing short-run average costs or long-run economies of scale. Third, any new firm has its own production techniques to compete with others.
These are the examples of oligopoly: technology industry, media industry, pharma industry, and automobile industry.
So the first example that we're going to tackle in oligopoly is the technology industry. The computer technology sector shows us the best example of oligopoly. So let us list the computer operating software and we will find out the two prominent names, the Apple and the Windows. So these two players have managed the majority of the market share for long. So there is one more player in this oligopoly named Linux open source. But apart from these three, there are hardly any players in this sector as they command almost 100% of the global market share. So these players achieved this stage because of the two primary factors. So first primary factors is the brand image and the trust they have created in the eyes of the consumer. So if you are one of the players of this technology industry, you need to be credible and trusted so that you can acquire a lot of consumers. And secondly, the lack of players who can stand of these three at the same time, building trust among consumers. So the next example is the media industry. So let us take the media sector in the US where almost 90% of the sector is being captured by 5 to 6 players. At the same time, a 10% share is being captured by the other small players who command the chunk of viewership, which includes the likes of Viacom, Disney, Time Warner, and NBC. They capture a significant shares in terms of operating rights and usage terms. So when we look at the overall primetime programming and content selection, we will observe that there is also considerable unity. It means if they keep the same prime time on every channel, then their viewership will be diversified. So in that case, not a single player will be able to take the edge.
So the third example of oligopoly is automobile or automotive industry. So the first question, what is automotive or automobile industry? Automotive or automobile industry focuses on manufacturing, developing, selling, and marketing of motor vehicles. The second question is, why is it the automobile industry considered an oligopoly? It is because it offers a little differentiation within the market. It has a significant barriers to the entry, so that is why it is considered as an oligopoly. The US automobile industry is a good example of oligopoly. It has three major firms: the Ford, the Chrysler, and General Motors. The influence of this oligopoly can be seen in the prices and the development and introduction of a new car models into the American car market. So we can say that oligopoly has an advantage on the automobile industry. However, it also has a disadvantage because oligopoly blamed as the main accused of the downturn in the US automobile sectors. The fourth example is the pharmaceutical industry. So what is pharmaceutical industry? Pharmaceutical industry discovers, develops, produce, and market drugs or pharmaceutical drugs for use of medication to be administered to the patient with the aim to cure them, vaccinate them, or alleviate the symptoms.
In a nutshell, we can say that an oligopoly may end up looking as monopoly or a competitive market. It depends on the number of firms. However, the pricing is done by a proper agreement between firms and product differentiation may or may not present. There is no certainty in how firms compete in oligopoly. It depends upon the objectives of the firms, the contestability of the market, and lastly, the nature of the product.